chairs of committees and some distrust among commissioners because not all commissioners are as great as they are. So if you don't have that trust among your fellow commissioners, then it can lead to issues. Maybe there's a few question marks on the answer. Thank you.
Oh, this goes to Bruce? Okay.
Certificates came.
What I want? Yes, you want it.
Now, the things you gotta sign were inside that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I failed to pass it on.
Guarantee it.
I don't think we're allowed to.
See the other one? That match green next to our side, next to Marshall. Marcia, get all together. Choose one so you can put a sign up on your corner out there. Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Oh, you didn't get here early enough? Oh, that is correct.
As long as we phrase it that way, as long as you can guarantee that. Okay. Let's start. Phenomenal. Shower. Happy. You got it crazy. That was it. What's tonight? What's tonight? Today. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he asked me to come, but I forgot I got him.
Oh, darn.
Good morning and welcome to the Berry County Board of Commissioners meeting for June 18th, 2024. If you would please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Sounds on.
La, la, la. Reports from state and county officials. Are there any state or county officials with us this morning who would like to address the board?
Yes, I would. Good morning, Commissioners. A couple of weeks ago, we distributed a draft solar ordinance to all the jurisdictions in the county and other important people that are interested in the process, and asked if they had any comments regarding the draft ordinance before we go to the formal public process and the public hearing. We did receive a few comments, and I'd like to distribute those to you.
One of each, okay.
The three comments that I received, one came from Rutland Township, one came from Consumers Energy, and one came from Yankee Springs Township. The Consumers one is possibly the most important in that the ordinance puts a cap on the size of a structure within a solar farm of being 25 feet. And they noted that the maximum or the minimum that they could support is a 40-foot structure for the plant that will likely be in Berry County. The Rutland comments deal with glare, and the Yankee Springs comments primarily deal with what would happen in the case of an emergency situation. Does the grid get shut down? Which likely is not an ordinance issue, but it is something that's important that we will need to find out as this process continues. The other sheet is comments that Commissioner Jackson obtained by Johnstown Township. And some of those will need to be evaluated possibly by our attorney over the next week to get some clarification on some of their requests. What we would like to do is have you review this for a week and then come back next week and discuss it. If any changes need to be made, have them made in advance of the final draft. We need to publish the final draft by July 1st if we're going to have a public hearing in July. So any amendments that need to be made from these initial comments really need to be done within the next week to 10 days.
Okay. Questions for Jim? All right, and Jim, I know you and I had already discussed just addressing some of these potentially with the attorney.
Correct.
Some of the things we went over. Good meeting at Johnstown Township with a lot of good input. So I will be in communication with you, and I'll gather input from my fellow commissioners as well, and hopefully have this summarized for next week's meeting so we can kind of go over some of this.
That would be great.
So,
Great, thank you.
Jim,
Yes.
could we get another copy of this?
We
We're
need one.
short. Thank you.
That's all.
I don't know if Lucia wanted to add anything to it, but
I had extra.
No, I don't think so. It looks like it's covered there.
Jim, I got extra. I'm just saying it's okay.
I was also at Rutland Township and addressed some of their concerns as well on glare. So I think there's a lot of agreement moving forward, and we're close, so.
Size-wise, like that, what it says right here, moving from a 20-acre to an 80-acre.
Yeah, that was one of the discussions that we're trying to really limit those smaller parcels coming in there. If they're going to do it, let's have something on a bigger scale, something that fits with our ordinance, so,
It makes sense.
you know, so. Okay, thank you. We will continue that discussion. Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Mackenzie Peters. I'm from Middleville, and I'm the administrator for Carveth Village. I'm here today to clarify last week's remarks, and I apologize for the lack of clarity. My opposition has and always will be to the county pooling relevant public resources to be in a shared campus as the county's business that competes in private industry. My remarks were not meant to reflect a lack of support for the COA or their millage that they're campaigning for. I believe, as well as many others, that the Commission on Aging offers great services, especially to those with limited options. And we obviously support them as we have done for the last 25 years, so I wanted to be clear on that. And I'm going off script because I'm also a village Middleville trustee, so I'm a elected official. I noticed that Mid-Villa is here today, or the project for Mid-Villa is here today to speak on the Brownfield tax authority and levying taxes for a part of that project. I can say that the council board unanimously approved their proposal, and I hope you will consider their proposal with great thought. The project offers in its entirety some great revenues for the village and for the county, so I hope you take that into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mackenzie.
Yep.
Additional public comment?
Hello, Gary White, Nashville. Concerned about the location of that COA building where it's going in at. A little bit about me. 3 weeks old, I lost my last grandparent. At 12 years old, I lost my dad. At 1 week before I graduated out of high school, I lost my aunt. So it's one of those things. My father-in-law got diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease. My mother-in-law took care of, my mom took care of my dad. My sister took care of my mom. My mother-in-law, when he was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease, took care of her husband, my father-in-law. When she became sick with cancer, my wife and her sister took care of them. When her brother had cancer, brain cancer, she ended up being the one taking care of them. I guess where I'm going with this, there's a lot of extraordinary people out there that do a lot of things. By moving this facility out there, I think you really lose track of who really does the work. Bob has talked about his wife taking care of her mother, I think, for 3 years, right? Well, those people are worth taking care of. Most of the people that are taken care of by family, friends, and they're done it in the home. So when you're looking at this facility, it bothers me to hear that now it is really just a feeder stream for Harvest Point and Thornapple Manor. If that's true, you folks aren't really taking care of seniors by moving it out of a highly populated area. So what is the real intent? Why are you moving away from seniors for the location and things? Something I did back when I was a driving instructor, I almost always had the first day of class. I talked to these kids about what their intent was there was freedom. The driver's license is going to give them some freedom. On day 7, we talked about other users of that road. It includes emergency vehicles, but the biggest one I talked about probably was seniors out there. Seniors don't want to lose their freedom. To come in here and say, well, we're going to bust them out there, are you not saying, well, they should lose their freedom? I think your thought on this may have good intentions, but you haven't really evaluated the whole situation out there, how this is really going to affect the senior population in Hastings and the people on the other side. When I spoke at Yankee Springs, I talked at Thornapple Township and places like that, even Woodland. It just is one of those situations where it's not been well thought out, and you're going to pass to move it forward anyways, without the consideration of the other people that are the caregivers of these people. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is David Lonsma, precinct delegate from Yankee Springs Township, precinct 1, also a candidate for County Commissioner, District 2. I would like to address the comments made last week at the end of the Board of Commissioner meeting. Those were closing remarks made by Commissioners Carlton, Hatfield, and Tunison. In her zeal to minimize the concerns raised by Ms. Peters on behalf of her residents and the livelihood of her private business, as well as the concerns raised by myself in her defense and for the other senior facilities around the county, they actually made my point better than I did. That point being that the direction of this Board of Commissioners is demonstrating little concern for the long-term interests of these private facilities. This board has developed a singular focus to combine and expand the facilities of the COA and campus of Harvest Point via the tax-funded advantages of being county-owned. The master plan shows the plans for the amenities being built in, and tax money is already being spent for trail improvements that nicely tie into the facility. In their comments, they chose to conflate the operating millage with the joining and expansion of the facilities at Harvest Point. These assertions are not ones we made, but rather they did. Their assertions claim that Ms. Peters made her comment for personal gain and that I made mine for political gain. These assertions were factually inaccurate and gratuitous at best. In fact, neither of us mentioned the operating millage. We spoke only to the unfair advantage of the expanding tax-funded county facility, standing in stark contrast to the privately funded facilities who are trying to stay in business while they pay their taxes. Ms. Peters has every right to speak in defense of her private business, as well as being the voice of the other private resident facilities in the county. As a precinct delegate, I have a responsibility to speak out in defense of those whose voice is not represented. It seems a favored tactic of this board is to attempt to minimize the voices of those who come and speak in ideas that are counter to your own. It is a weak argument. Both Ms. Peters and I have spoken openly in support of the purpose and services of the Commission on Aging. These services are important countywide and need to remain countywide. And these services exist because of the hard work and dedication of many individuals, along with the funding made available through the operating millage. The passage of the COA operating millage is a task of its own. You will likely be deciding today regarding the plans to move forward with the new COA facility building project at Harvest Point. Consider carefully whether you are stepping into or out of the way of free market enterprise. That is the market force that has best met the needs of the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Bill Matson, Hastings. I'm the program director at the Family Support Center, which is a state-identified child abuse prevention council here in Berry County. I want to say that one of the protective factors to prevent child abuse is concrete supports, and one of those concrete supports is safe, affordable housing. So I would have you support the mid-villa proposal that will be talked about today. One thing the commission should remember that there's roughly between 4,500 and 5,900 people living in poverty here in Berry County. And that means that poverty, how is that defined by the federal government? For a single individual, that's roughly $15,000 a year. For a family of four, it's roughly $31,000 a year. If you look at that 30% of those people living in poverty, what could they afford for rent? We're talking for a single individual about $375 a month, and for a family of four, it would be $780. So as projects come to the commission in the future, I would suggest that at some point we need to look at those almost 6,000 people that live in poverty and where can they live. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Additional public comment?
Good morning, Rich Tinkley, Director, Berry County Community Mental Health. So this morning I just wanted to come before you and bring some information about conflict-free access and planning. I'll drop some information off to the commissioners as well as I did email Chair Jackson and Michael Brown this morning. But your association has come out with basically to be in agreement with my association, the Community Mental Health Association, that says conflict-free access and planning, they're opposed to that. I'm not going to go through it, but the information that you'll either get via email or in this packet will explain what is conflict-free access and planning and why are we opposed to it, what are the other options. But in essence, it is a federal mandate that we have to do, as far as making sure there's not a conflict between who's assessing somebody for services and who's actually doing that. So we agree with that. The opposition comes from how the state is saying you must do that, and it actually adds more burden and more confusion to the individuals providing services. So my purpose today is just to get that information out to you. Your association is actually recommending support, and they passed out a template resolution. If you have questions about that or would like me to come back to explain more in detail what conflict-free access and planning really is, I'm more than welcome to do that. But today I just want to get the information to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Rich. Additional public comment? Okay.
Morning, Commissioners. It's been a while since I've been up here, but good to see some friendly faces. My name is Travis Alden, here with a couple of hats on. One, my role as Community Development for the Right Place Regional Economic Development Organization, headquartered in Grand Rapids, but also Berry County resident, live in Irving Township, Middleville address. So I'm here to voice my support for the proposed Mid-Villa project there on the north side of Middleville. My letter of support that I provided is in the packet, so I won't be redundant there. But two quick comments I wanted to make. One is when we moved here in early 2016 for me to work at the Chamber and Economic Development Alliance here in Berry County, this site was one of the first ones that kind of came onto the radar in terms of being a primary priority redevelopment site within the county. That was over 8 years ago. And during my time here, we had a number of developers sort of kick the tires and propose some exciting projects there. The kind of undercurrent was none of them penciled out, just couldn't make the numbers work. And so there we are left with, kind of the vacant site that we have today. My concern is if there is a continued hesitation to utilizing the housing TIF tool, that'll continue to be the entryway to our county is this vacant site on the north edge of Middleville. So just wanted to put that out there in terms of if there's no action taken, nothing happens, right? So the second thing I was going to mention is since I joined the Right Place over 4 years ago, we serve a 13-county geography across West Michigan. That has allowed me to gain some I think valuable perspective, especially when it comes to housing and community development projects like this. I don't think anybody could argue with me when I say it is extremely difficult to make any projects like this pencil out across the region, okay? There might be a handful of rainbow unicorn type scenarios where the market matches the demand, which matches the cost structure and that sort of thing, and that's why you end up with swanky apartments in Ada that cost $4,000 a month to rent, right? That's not Berry County, that's not Middleville. So I think what I'm trying to say is without utilizing tools like this, no projects really can move forward. We recently had a master plan meeting in the city of Grand Rapids, a focus group of developers across the region, and unanimously they said, there are no projects that can move forward in Grand Rapids without some sort of financial assistance, and that's Grand Rapids, right? So I guess I just wanted to put out there that we can all lament about the situation for housing and how it should be more affordable and it should be easier to do projects. The reality of the situation is they require intervention, and that's what this tool is for. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Travis. Good to see you again.
Yep, you too.
Additional public comment?
Good morning. I'm Chelsea Foster. I'm a City of Hastings resident and serve on the EDA board and also on the Brownfield Redevelopment Board, City of Hastings Planning Commission. I think we all know housing has been one of the top priorities identified in almost all of our strategic plans. I've been hearing about it since I moved here about 11 years ago. I definitely am here as a supporter of the Mid-Villa proposed project. As Travis said, This site is really a unique site that can handle a development of this size. There really aren't that many around the county that could handle this size development. It has some unique challenges that the developer hasn't encountered with moving a gas line or oil line and various things like that. But I think it's staged great for this type of project. We definitely need more housing. I think this project's unique in that it has opportunities for tax base creation with the commercial outlots along M37. So hopefully we'll see some immediate benefit there to the tax base. Village of Middleville will benefit from a huge new water and sewer customer, the new school children that will likely land in the TK district. Think about things like volunteer firefighters, how hard that is to attract those folks. If we get a couple hundred additional residents in town, that should help their efforts. And then the big elephant in the room to me, I think, is we have our largest employer and taxpayer sitting there in Bradford White. They struggle to hire all the time. They're always trying to expand and look for folks, and they've always pointed to housing as a big challenge. So I think in supporting this project, you're also supporting, obviously, that large employer and taxpayer that we want to take care of. So just voicing my support. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Good morning. Dan King, Rutland Township resident, also on the Brownfield redevelopment and land bank authority for the county. I don't think it's any secret in this room, people in attendance, people watching on cable, housing is the number one critical need that we need throughout this county. Whether it be multifamily, attainable workforce housing, single family, duplex, townhouses, Berry County has a severe need for this type of housing. And if anybody in this room thinks that help is going to be on the way from Lansing or Washington, D.C., you're sadly mistaken. Sure, the state of Michigan comes up with pilot programs, comes up with the housing TIF programs, and they pat themselves on the back for that, but at the end of the day, it comes off the backs of the local units of government, which is you and all of us. So, that's a fact. Also, regarding the housing TIF, what we all have to remember is that property, the Mid-Villa property, basically has a flatline value currently. It's not worth anything. It's undeveloped property. Saying no to a TIF or that type of incentive basically guarantees that for the foreseeable future, whether that be 10, 15, 20, 30 years, that property is going to have zero value. At least with some incentives with the housing TIF, you know that there's going to be a finite period of time where assistance is given to the developer to keep those rents at an attainable level. But at the end of that period, it goes back to, just regular ad valorem taxes. And also, the commercial part of that will already be on the tax roll, which makes up a huge difference. So, again, I'm here to support my vote for going forward with the TIF. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Good morning to the esteemed county commissioners. I'm happy to be here this morning and to, again, voice my opinion. Bonnie Geddes, Berry County Community Foundation, resident of Hastings, Michigan. I want to voice my opinion that approving this TIF is a first step. It's a first step in the right direction in the fact that you have created a brownfield authority, you have created a land bank, and now you have an opportunity to step forward and do something for the future of this community as a whole by approving this TIF project in Middleville. It is absolutely a necessity to make sure that we're able to move forward with this project. And we all know that housing is the major component of all the work that we are doing. And I'm holding in front of you a housing toolkit that the Community Foundation and the Economic Alliance commissioned with the Antero Group to really look deeply at the needs and deeply at the challenges that are faced when we are trying to bring developers into our community. We don't want to be seen as a community that is difficult to work with. We want to be seen as a community that absolutely welcomes and supports all types of housing including the workforce. And the workforce being the people that we see every day that wait on us in a restaurant, that are our first-year teachers, that work in the sheriff's department as deputies when they're first getting out of school. This is about the first step into the home ownership journey. So thank you for your positive vote today. I know that you will see the good writing on the wall. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bonnie. Additional public comment?
Good morning, Joel Ibbotson, Rutland Township. I don't think I'll ever have a better opportunity to reach so many people in housing. Something that I have, this is digging up from something I pushed back in 2016. I worked with Julie Calley when she was state rep, and she was able to get it in committee, but she wasn't able to make any headway on it before the new legislature came in. But I've been an advocate for nearly a decade now of offering a homestead exemption to rental properties with long-term tenants. If you think about it, the way a business works, a person creates a product or a service that someone wants, they put their markup on top of the cost of that product and they sell it to someone else. My property taxes at my house are roughly half of what that property tax would be by owning it. If I were to rent that, I would be paying roughly double the property tax. That is a part of the rent that gets transferred to the tenant. It's in essence a regressive tax because you are penalizing people for renting versus ownership. And it hurts low-income individuals that can't get into that ownership position. So I would encourage everyone in this room to call their state rep, if they would, and ask for that. It would make some of what's going on here today a moot point. So remember, homestead exemption for properties, rental properties with long-term tenants. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Additional public comment? Going once. Okay, we will move ahead with our agenda. Approval of the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes from June 4th, 2024. I'm assuming you've had your packet, had a chance to review those. Is there a motion for support?
So moved. Support.
Motion by Tunison, support by Hatfield for approval of the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes for June 4th, 2024. Is there additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is approved. Next up, Courtney Ziny from the COA. Good morning, Courtney. Courtney and Company, excuse me.
Yeah. Morning, how are you?
Awesome, thank you.
Good. Before I introduce my company, I did want to do just a couple of housekeeping things. So when I hear reference of a master plan for the senior campus, I want to clarify, and I know that we've all said this before, but I just want to make sure that, again, it's on public record, that is a conceptual drawing that has not been approved as a master plan. When we were looking at proceeding with the site, we want to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible with the COA facility. And so we want to make sure as we're laying down, whether it's fire suppression tanks or whatever it is, that we're conscientious of what that campus may look like and again, may look like in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So we don't want to spend $6 million of this community's money on a facility that then pieces or parts of might have to be adjusted at a later date. So just clarification there. So I do have with me Kurt Penny from Eckert Wardell, who has been the architect working on the project, the architectural firm working on the project. And then I'd also like to introduce Greg Deeds from Frederick Construction. So in your packet, you did have a request form that we would like, upon final review from legal counsel, approval of the agreement between Frederick Construction and Berry County as it pertains to the COA portion of the new facility. So the initial amount for pre-construction work is $12,000, and then in there it laid out what the fees would be once a guaranteed maximum price amendment is settled on. So I wanted Kurt to take the opportunity to kind of walk us through the RFP process and what that looked like, and then Greg to speak to Frederick Construction's qualifications and why the project was interesting to them. So.
Thank you. Again, Kurt Penny from Eckert Wardell, Kalamazoo, Michigan. First, I just want to give you a quick update on the design progress. We moved out of schematic design. We're in design development. At the end of July, we'll be concluding that and going into construction documents and having those ready at the end of summer to go out to bid, getting past the school season and into a good bidding climate, we think. So everything is tracking very well on the design schedule at this point. So regarding the construction manager RFP, we produced an RFP. We published that, and we got interest from 12 different groups. 11 of those groups ended up submitting a proposal and bid for the project. And from there, our committee evaluated the proposals based on their fee, their experience, the time that appeared to put into the proposal, and narrowed down that group to 6. There was a lot of highly qualified groups in that responded to this RFP. So a committee of 8 people at Harvest Point, we interviewed 6 of those firms in one day and had a lot of great conversation in the interviews. Ended up at the end of the day narrowing it down to 3 groups: Frederick Construction, Millard Davis out of Kalamazoo, and then Lakewood, who has offices in Holland and Grand Rapids. Going through discussion with the committee, Frederick Construction really stood out with their overall experience. The superintendent experience that was going to be assigned to the project. Fee was a factor. Frederick Construction's fee was fit in very nicely with the project. And overall, there was just a confidence with the group based on their experience moving forward. So that was our criteria. We did a vote in the committee, and at the end of the day, we all agreed to move forward with Frederick Construction. I also say during the interview process, the commitment by Frederick to involve local bidders in the project. So there'll obviously be the construction manager, but giving the opportunity to local bidders to be a part of the project was very important to the committee. So that's my update. Thank you.
So, Greg Deeds, Vice President, Frederick Construction. Thank you all for having me here today. So as Kurt and Courtney said, we responded to an RFP for construction management services. We're a 30-year proven contractor, Southwest Michigan. We do $25-30 million worth on an annual basis. Our primary focus is construction management as constructor. It's a contracting method that we believe brings a lot of value to the client. It's fair to the contractors, and done well, it's a great process. So from a response standpoint, the scope of work meets the type of work that we do. We have very competent superintendents who are very familiar with wood-framed construction. We are very accustomed to working in occupied facilities. We do a fair amount of work for St. Joe County. We've done a fair amount of work with Cass Family Clinic in Niles, so we understand public work. We understand what it means to report to a director who reports to a board, who reports to commissioners. So we understand our role, right? We've got a 25-year, I personally have a 25-year track record working with Eckert Wardell. So all of that combined made this a very attractive project for us, and we hope we can support the next steps.
Thank you. So part of the reason of bringing them on for pre-construction work is, again, that fiscal responsibility. So we really want to make sure that when we do put bids out, that when we do have that guaranteed maximum price, that it truly is that maximum price. So it's something that, as I've talked to donors, that we're very cognizant of. We need to know when we're ready to put shovels in the ground that we know what we're getting into. For the most part, there's going to be something, right, because it's a construction project. But so that would be why we really feel it's important to bring them on at this point during the design and development, and as we move into the construction, the actual plans. So, do you have any questions for any of us?
Questions from commissioners? I was fortunate to sit on that interview that day. It was a long day, but when Greg got up there from Frederick and automatically said right off the bat that they've already done some homework, because the suppression tanks for Harvest Point are right where we need to put the new building. He'd already been figuring out how to move those tanks and not shut them down to the point where, be in violation. So I was very impressed by this fact that, and you can tell that he's a problem solver, type guy that'll wake up 3 in the morning and figure out a problem, okay? So, very impressed with a lot of the, especially, it was a tough decision. It came down to a couple different ones, but they just kind of separated themselves from the pack with how prepared they were and the experience that they're bringing to the table. So.
How many people are on that board for interviews? Was that the
eight
people? Okay.
So it was representatives from COA, Thornapple Manor, and Bob was able to join us as a commissioner. So.
Awesome. Additional questions? Okay, seems pretty straightforward. We've been doing a great job of keeping us updated on the progress as we've gone through this. So it seems like things are on track. I like to hear the update from Kurt, especially that things are going well, and we'll have some hard details by the end of the summer. So, awesome. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to adopt the standard form of agreement between Frederick Construction, Inc. and Berry County for construction management services for a new Berry County Commission on Aging facility.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Getty, support by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to adopt a standard form of agreement between Frederick Construction, Inc. and Berry County for construction management services for the new Berry County Commission on Aging facility. Additional discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Next up, Jamie Lewis-Hedges. I know he is here somewhere. There he is.
Good morning. I was hiding on the opposite side for a change. We are here to follow up on spongy moth outbreak in Berry County and present the proposal we have before you for doing a spongy moth survey. Do we have the presentation available for the overhead? No, I also have some satellite printouts that we'll share with you. Great. Thank you very much. Next slide on that. This starts some imagery that was shared with us from the USDA Forest Service Southern Research Station Threat Assessment Center. They reached out to us sharing this imagery. This first one that you see is down in the Long Lake area, I believe, and in the darker red and orange colors, you see the areas of extreme defoliation where the canopy, the leaves in the canopy of the forest have been destroyed, presumably by spongy moth caterpillars. Next imagery shows similar in southwest Berry County. And in the next image, you can see again similar down in the Yankee Springs area around Gun Lake. This is commensurate with what we are hearing, as you are hearing from a lot of folks in Berry County who are experiencing the outbreak on their property, trees having their canopy destroyed, having caterpillars fall on their coffee while they're sitting on their porch, people who are just under extreme duress and uncomfortable on their own property. To be clear, healthy trees can survive the outbreak, and in fact, the Southern Research Station sees in the year-over-year satellite imagery that forest stands that have gone through the spongy moth outbreak do show some resilience and adaptive response going through it the next year. That doesn't help trees that are not healthy, to be clear. And landowners, as we've reported before, are left with few options on their own to respond to this infestation. They can spray BTK, which has to cover the canopy before the caterpillar encounter it. They can wait for the biological control of the fungus under the right conditions in the spring, cold and wet conditions to bring the population into check and cause a collapse. They can, in the spring and this time of year, they can wrap the trees in burlap, capture the spongy moth and destroy it. They can, in the fall and the winter, they can scrape the egg masses off and similarly destroy them. All of these are, for most landowners, difficult and require an investment of time and money. And so many folks have been asking about doing aerial spraying by the township or the county. Our advice on the next slide is that we really need additional data before spraying. The reasons for this include that there are environmental concerns to be considered with aerial spraying. Again, there's abundant evidence that BTK is safe. There is impact to the monarch butterfly, but with targeted and early treatment in the spring, you can completely avoid and mitigate that possibility. Be that as it may, many people in the community have concerns about wide-scale flyover spraying, and frankly, the cost of spraying is significant. We did some estimation of what it would cost, for instance, if we were spraying all the forested area of Berry County, and came up with the number of $8.5 million that it would require to do that. So our proposal is for the district to do a survey in the fall. We would do this after the peak egg laying period of time so that we know as much as possible is out there. We would go and document where we see egg masses, where we see non-target species, such as the monarch butterfly that we don't want to impact, and their habitats. This would provide you information about when and where to treat, when and where not to treat, and increase the information with which the public and public administration can respond in an environmentally safer and more cost-effective way. The deliverable would be our report in hard copy, as well as a presentation to this body that includes the properties that would potentially opt in and opt out were spraying to be proposed. Thank you. If there's any questions, we're happy to take them.
Commissioner Tennyson.
Could we foresee this going to be this severe this year at all? I mean, in the spring when you guys were here, I don't think any of us had a clue that it was going to be this bad. Maybe you guys didn't either, but.
All right, I'm Ben Savoy, District Forester, so I get a lot of the calls from constituents that are saying, like, this is really bad this year, my trees are completely stripped of leaves, what's going on? This has been a trend for the past 3 to 5 years, and this is kind of the peak that we've seen. Definitely the most calls that we've had and the most damage that we've seen. We're expecting that this is kind of the peak of a cycle of the outbreaks, where it's at the highest it's going to be and then a possible collapse in the future. So next year could be worse, next year could be a lot better.
So you have no way of determining.
That's what the survey is for.
Until you do the survey.
Yeah, the survey would tell us how many egg masses are currently out in the forest, so we know how many eggs would be hatching this coming spring. So we know how bad those infestations are going to be.
Yeah. And this was an article that was in the Reminder on June 8th, 2024. Now it says in 2023, Department of Natural Resources did an aerial survey of nearly 20 million acres across the state, mapping 156,000 acres of defoliation. And they said why that number seems high. It's less than half of the 386 acres recorded in 2022 and far short of the 1.3 million acres damaged in 2021. So the decline is expected to continue in 2024. And they have a graph that shows that's statewide information. I'm sure that it could be different on a local basis, but and $15,000 isn't a huge ask to do a survey. It's just a matter of timing is everything.
Yes.
Are we past the useful time to do this survey to get results for our constituents?
For this year, yes. For the surveys that we would be doing this fall would be for next year's outbreak. That's the way we can see what the next population levels are going to be like, whether it's going to look like it's lower for next year or look like it's higher. So for this year, it's already kind of come and gone. The eggs hatched in the spring, we're currently in the stage of their growth where they're feeding, and soon they'll pupate into adults. And then after that point, it's hard to survey until they lay eggs this year.
Okay. So it's hard to tell exactly what the impact will be until we do a survey.
Unfortunately, yes.
Did you have a chance to do any research on this? Because I was told that the county did do spraying in the past, in the late 90s and in the mid-2000s, that there was some spraying going on. Of course, the cost was significantly different than $8.5 million. But I understand that the county doesn't do that, those are all done through contractors now, private contractors?
That's correct. There's usually a few contractors that work with municipalities. These would be either agricultural spraying companies or folks that do specifically spraying for insects like this.
Okay.
So the way that we got our numbers for that is Ben did some comparison to other townships in Kent County that had done recent spraying, looked at the numbers that they had paid in the last couple of years, I believe it was 22 and 23, and based on if that cost was similar, what it would cost now for us to do that.
Interesting. So if we do the survey in the fall, we're talking September, October?
Most likely October.
October?
Yes.
Okay. That report would come to us a couple months after that then?
We're hoping that the survey would only take a month. The cost that we had provided to you, that $15,000 number, comes from hiring seasonal workers to be full-time for the month of October to do these surveys on private property.
Okay. Do you have an issue getting on private property?
Typically, no. My job is basically going on to private properties to do a lot of forest management advising. So as a conservation district, we work with private landowners quite often, and other programs that we have also do gather permissions from private landowners to do these surveys.
Okay, and when that report comes back, is there a recommendation with it, or are we going to get a list of options as far as what happens next? I mean, if we decide that some spraying is in order?
Right. Ideally, we would give you the data that comes from these surveys and allow you to make that decision based on what the community desires and what the data shows.
Okay. Additional questions from commissioners? Commissioner Getty?
The survey of the egg masses, what else, so the number of egg masses predicts what the next season will be. How do you know if it's going to hit its peak? Like, are there other factors that would determine the success rate of those egg hatchings? Like, so if we were in a decline, let's say that this was the peak, what would a good report show in October?
It's a very good question. So what we look for in these surveys is the total number of egg masses on the tree, and this is including old egg masses that have hatched. You can tell that they're older if they're soft and spongy to the touch, hence the spongy moth name. The newest egg masses are firm and kind of hairy. So if we look at these egg masses and see that they're spongy, falling apart, those are the old ones. We compare those old ones to the new ones. If there's far more old ones than there are new ones, we can see that there's a population decline. If there's a lot more new egg masses compared to old egg masses, we can see that the population is rising.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smelker?
On past history, if someone decides to spray, is it recommended that you spray every year, or does one spraying kill for a length of time?
We've seen reports from these sprayings that the first spraying often alleviates the symptoms. It doesn't cause a cure of the whole issue with the population because depending on the size of the spraying, you may have encroachment from places that haven't been sprayed, where basically after the life of that treatment is over, the worms come in and start feeding again. But on large treatments, we see a very significant decrease in those population levels, especially when those treatments are repeated, such as with Ada Township, which is the one of the townships that we talked with about the results of their survey. We saw a very drastic decrease in the not just the populations of the caterpillars, but the amount of area that needed treatment that following year.
And do you have any idea, say a small area, 500 acres or something, roughly what that would cost per acre if an individual wanted to do it?
Yeah, if an individual wanted to do it, it'd be very
I agree, know that it's going to be a range.
Yeah. I don't have that information on me right now,
Okay.
But it's in the thousands of acres. We're talking about thousands of dollars. You wouldn't happen to remember what we had for the 3,000 acres, would we?
No, I don't.
Okay. Yeah, I unfortunately don't know the answer for that right now. I can send a report to the Board of Commissioners based on what our previous research was once I have that information on hand.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doster?
I was going to ask about
what you saw in studying Kent County's trial of it, I guess. They did 2 years of it that you know of in like the Ada area, and it was like, the second year was like a tenth of the population or something like that? Was that?
Yeah, I think a tenth is accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it appears that this treatment it does work.
Right. The treatment itself is very targeted to the spongy moth caterpillar. The bacteria that's in that chemical BTK is basically just targeting caterpillars of moths and butterflies. And spongy moth, when you spray during the early spring, is one of the only moths that are actively feeding during that time. So
you're not aware, if it's applied in a specific window, you're not aware of any cross-contamination or killing of other insects?
Yeah, and it's been shown to be safe to human life and other animals by directly applying it in doses that would exceed normal spraying. It only affects those butterflies and caterpillars, butterflies and moth caterpillars.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Tennyson?
I think this is something we need to get on top of, because I don't think the trees will go through another year of this devastation. I've lived here my whole life, I've never seen it this bad. And I don't know, do you think that the winter being so mild had something to do with this?
Milder winters definitely have an impact on insect populations that following spring. It allows more eggs to survive through those difficult times of the year. So the more eggs that survive, the more caterpillars hatch and cause these problems.
One more question, Dave.
Yes, Commissioner Smith.
On the trees that have been defoliated, like the oaks, and they come back some, will there be acorns on them trees?
That's a tough question. Acorn production is not very well understood on when they produce so many and when they don't produce any at all. It's a ongoing scientific study, but many trees do produce seeds in response to stresses. So we may see a outcropping of acorns this year because of the stresses on oak trees.
Thank you. And I have the same question about walnuts, probably the same answer. I just can't believe these worms will eat a walnut leaf.
Right, they have their preferred hosts. They definitely prefer oaks over pretty much any other type of tree, but they'll feed on just about anything. Yeah.
So why don't you invent something that feeds on spongy moss?
That creates more problems.
We do have some classic biological control where we've brought something in to control the caterpillars. There's two things that we have. One of them is a fungus that infects the caterpillar and then spreads throughout the population. And similarly, there's a virus that these caterpillars get when their populations reach really high amounts. And currently, we're seeing them working. It's a bit late in the season for it to be good news for everyone, but we're seeing that the caterpillars are showing signs of dying from those biological controls. So it takes about a month for, apparently in these non-ideal conditions, for it to spread throughout the entire population. And the caterpillars only feed for 2 months. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse with these things.
So no natural predators as far as birds, anything else? So.
Right, that's what makes them such a pest, is that they're invasive, nothing really feeds on them. They're quite large, so you'd think that something would be like, oh, that's food. But it's...
They're slimy.
Yeah, they're apparently just, nothing recognizes them as food. So it's difficult to get rid of them.
Chair Jackson?
Yes.
This may be premature, but I've had a lot of questions, as I'm sure we all have, about spraying, who pays, how much it's going to cost. If I remember correctly, in the past, the townships have determined if they spray and then assess the parcels that are sprayed. Is that what we're talking about here? Is that how it's done, how it was done in Kent County?
We have limited information on that, but that was our understanding as well.
So this would be information we're going to share with our township officials, not something that we would be talking about if $8.5 million, spending it from the general fund, anything like that. Obviously, I think Michael's probably drilling a hole in my back, like we didn't budget for that. But that's, so for, folks that are listening, they understand that this would be something that benefited parcels would be participating in.
Correct. So as we were talking about a moment ago with the peak and where we're at in juxtaposition to the peak, we don't know. We're shooting in the dark with limited information on that. So this survey would give us more information with which you could make those decisions.
Thank you.
I believe that Michael was here when it was sprayed the last time, and it was done through a voluntary type assessment?
It was, yeah, when I was here. The county, just like now, the subject started at the county. The Conservation District did just what you're doing, an egg mass study. And then from there, we participated with the Conservation District in putting together a voluntary program. They went out and surveyed landowners to determine who wanted to participate on again, on Commissioner Getty's position, on a voluntary basis. You have to create spray blocks, so it's a bit of a cumbersome process, but the Conservation District did a great job and has the tools to do that, where you work with landowners, determine who has an interest. Based on that, the Conservation District talked to spray applicators to get then an initial cost based on how much spray block, how large of spray blocks there were. Went back to the landowners and said, based on if everybody participated, here's what it would cost in total, and here's what your per acre or per whatever charge would be. And then folks had to have an opportunity to opt out. So everybody that was in a spray block had the opportunity to say, no, I don't want to be sprayed. The challenge then becomes, and really some work, is now you have to have buffer zones and that, and coordinating those buffer zones along with what an aerial applicator can actually spray, right? They can't just spray somebody's city lot. It's not practical. So building out and effectively work with our mapping department to build out those maps of spray blocks, and then went back to the landowner with a final cost and said, okay, based on final spray blocks, the final bid, here's what your cost would be. There is a little bit of a risk. It's a voluntary program, so if somebody doesn't pay, we don't have a mechanism to assess that on their taxes or whatnot. So there's a little bit of risk to the county. Or if it's at a township level, arguably if the county didn't want to do it as a whole, the township could. There's some risk there. But it is a process that we've been through. While the Conservation District may not have the history right now, the people that were here then, they certainly have I'm going to call it the muscles, if you may. That's what they do. This is right in their wheelhouse. They're capable, as has been commented, hire a few folks, seasonal workers for a month. I mean, they're just structured to be able to pull this together in short order and do that. So you're definitely on the right track at this point in developing a program.
Good, thank you. And let me just say thank you for fielding all the phone calls and answering all the questions, because there have been several, and I think everybody went and called the Conservation District. And you guys have been fantastic at fielding those questions and providing information to us that we can relay to people. So we really appreciate your efforts there. I think this is a good proposal, because I would like to see where we are in the cycle for our county-wide, and we won't know that until we spend the money to do a survey. So, With that, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of professional services agreement between Berry County and the Berry County Conservation District to conduct a spongy moth egg mass survey between October 1st, 2024 through October 31st, 2024 for the amount of $15,000 with funds to come from the general fund.
So moved, Doster. Support.
Motion by Doster, support by Smelker to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of a professional services agreement between Berry County and the Berry County Conservation District to conduct a spongy moth egg mass survey between October 1st, 2024 through October 31st, 2024 in the amount of $15,000 with funds to come to the general fund. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time this morning, and we look forward to the results of the survey.
Mr. Chairman, take 5.
Yeah, we're going to take, the board will be at recess for 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, the board will come back in session. Next up, Jennifer Heinzman with a presentation from Mid-Villa Brownfield and TIF plan and the request for a public hearing.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning.
How are you? You all know Nicole Like, she's from my office. I'm going to bring her up first, and we're going to talk about need and demand first. As promised, we're here to talk about the Mid-Villa TIF project. We have talked about this in the past. I have brought an entire team with us today, so we've got Nate Hybor over here. They'll be coming up here next. Marcus Ringalda and Elizabeth Massering, and Casey Smith from SME, and we've also got Doug Powers here from the Village of Middleville, in case you have any questions. But I'm going to let Nicole talk about need and demand first, and then we'll bring them up.
All right. If you can't hear me, let me know. I'll try and talk louder. So my name is Nicole Like. I'm the Economic Development Director for the Berry County Chamber and EDA, and that is a long way of saying that I know facts about Berry County. So I'm going to talk about specifically the housing need. We know that there's a huge demand for housing, but housing isn't a monolith. There's more than one type of housing, and part of a healthy housing ecosystem is having a diversity of housing types. So that is single family, multifamily at all different income levels. And throughout the county, we're seeing different types of housing being built. A lot of it is single family, a lot of it is market rate. There are a few projects throughout the county. In Nashville, there's a LIHTC project and there's some pilot projects, but nothing right now specifically for workforce housing. So what does workforce housing even mean? It is intended for individuals that make 80 to 120% of the AMI, which is the average median income for an area. So that number is going to vary from community to community because the AMI in the village of Nashville is not the same as the AMI in the village of Middleville. So when they talk about what the AMI is, that's going to vary. For this particular project, it's about $40,000 a year to $90,000 a year. That specifically looking at the village of Middleville and their top industries, these are going to be housing units that are for production workers who the entry level average wage is about $19 an hour or $39,520 a year. So it's housing for people in that income level. Experienced production workers make about $21 an hour or $43,000 a year. Auto body workers and master mechanics make anywhere from $62,000 to $90,000 a year. And then you have the school district, which is another large employer in the village, and preschool teachers to elementary teachers make anywhere from $24,000 to $87,000 a year. So these are housing units that are specifically for those industries that are in high demand in the village. They're their top employers. And there's a gap for that type of housing right now, and that's why it's so hard and why you see so much turnover with production workers, with teachers, because they can't afford to live where they're working, so they go where they can. Part of that growth that we're seeing right now is going to continue. The county growth projections for the next 10 years are expected to grow about 20%, or about 2,500 to 5,000 people is the anticipated growth for the county right now. 20% of that growth is going to take place in the village of Middleville, and right now there's no place for those people to live. That is about 880 individuals right now with the existing demand. When you look at the footprint of the village of Middleville, and Doug can probably go into this in greater detail, they're kind of landlocked. You don't really have space to build single-family units for 880 people. So then you get put in a position where you're having to have the conversation of, do you want density or do you want sprawl? And if you don't have the land for those single-family homes to be built out in a sprawled type environment, then you have to start making hard decisions about what you're going to give up to build because you need land. So are you giving up farmland? Are you giving up green space? Are you giving up forests? What are you willing to give up to build out single-family homes? Or you can use this space that is vacant that can build 144 units right away, which is about 15% of the demand that's expected for the village. It would immediately address that. And
and then also have these additional commercial pieces right there and amenities that they're building at that site. So the demand is there, the need is there. It creates that missing piece of the housing ecosystem that we haven't seen right now, which is housing units built specifically for that 80 to 120% income level. It's also called the donut hole level. Those individuals tend to make too much money to qualify for any type of assistance through the state, but not enough money to afford market rate housing. So it's a very specific gap. It creates that mobility. And right now, what we're seeing with the housing market in Berry County is it's kind of locked. As soon as something is put on the market, it is sold, and there's no real opportunity for individuals to downgrade houses, right? If they bought a family home and now it's just two of them, all of their kids have moved on, and they have a 6-bedroom house or a 4-bedroom house and it's 2 people, they need the opportunity to downgrade and free up that space for additional families to move in, but that's not what we're seeing with the housing market in Berry County. Most of the realtors will tell you it's less than 30 days that something's listed, and a lot of times it's being cash offers. So the turnaround for housing is very, very high. The demand is very, very high. The growth is going to continue. This is an opportunity to build out a significant amount of housing units in a rather small footprint, which protects some of the amenities, some of the charm that make the village, right, such a high demand place to live, all of the green space access and the natural amenities that exist there. So that's just kind of what I wanted to talk about, was that need and demand. So if there's any questions about that, please let me know. I'd gladly answer any of them. And they'll get into further details about the specifics of the project, what that footprint looks like, and the amenities and all of that. So.
I'll also add that we did include in your packets, there are letters of support. We've talked with Bradford White, the schools. They'll tell you that they've already talked with the emergency services. You've heard from Right Place. So we've had all of these conversations, and everybody is in support of it at that level. So for now, I'll just let them go through the presentation, and we'll bring up Nate and Marcus. But keep in mind that SME and the village has representatives here if you have specific questions on any of those things.
Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Smoker.
On the $24,000 to $40,000 range ones, is that figuring 2 people, 2 family incomes, you just double that? And do you have any idea the percentage of the people that'll be in the apartments?
Yep, they will have the answer to that, on how they figure that out. So there's an actual workbook that they had to do that was put together by MISHA, where it breaks down all of the rental rates per unit and what that level is per person. So they have all of those numbers configured already.
So we'll bring that up.
One of the other things that I'll add while they're coming up is right now in the village of Middleville, if you are looking for a rental unit, there aren't any available, and you're lucky if you can get on a wait list that is at least 6 months out. So there's a really high demand for rental units in the village right now.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Jennifer.
Hello, Commissioners. Good morning. Thanks for having us. Jen, Nicole, thank you. I'm Nate Highmore. I'm the owner and developer of Midvilla. I've been working on this project. I think I purchased the land around 3 years ago. Development is not fun. It's not easy. There's been several hurdles to get to this point. I'm very proud that we're at this point. There's been lots of meetings, lots of negotiations, a lot of listening to the public. I'm going to give some of those examples now. There's a lot of technical information in that packet, but I'd like to go back through the history of some of it and some of the extra hurdles that this property has along with it that we've addressed. So first off, yes, this was a redevelopment-ready site, which attracted me and has attracted, sounds like, other developers in the past. But there are definitely some hurdles there, too. A couple of the easy ones up front are the level where the apartments are going to go. It's not the commercial lots, but the apartments that will require a private lift station be put in. That was not at the time. Currently, Alec and the village did not want to take that on as another public-owned lift station. So that is something that I will be privately maintaining. But through our discussions, through negotiations, and making sure that I'm building the right thing in Middleville, we had long meetings with Alec. On bid day, the excavators came and said, hey, the lift station we can build for you is $275,000 using round numbers. I said, no, I need one at village specs. That way, even though I own DHE Plumbing and I've got 150 plumbers at my disposal, if I get hit by a train, an emergency happens, I need Alec in the village to be able to step in to make sure that this project's taken care of. So that lift station went from $275,000 for private to one that meets the Kennedy pumps and the other specs that the village is comfortable with, and now we're up to about $475,000, $500,000. So over double, but to make sure that this is a long sustaining project. Hurdle number 2, the oil line, the wonderful oil line that runs right through the center of that project that has discouraged other developers in the past. I've worked for years with the owner of the oil line to move the line. They're out of Pennsylvania. They have lots of issues with just big moving machine, couldn't get an answer. I need this oil line moved. Eventually, I had to buy it. I now own a 98-mile oil line that goes from Niles, Michigan to Lowell, the old LP line that's been used since the 40s. So now I own it, and after my first investigation, it is Swiss cheese. It's been cut up by every farmer in between this entire area, but I needed it to be able to move forward, or again, this project would not work. It would be impossible to build without an easement or a move of said oil line. Along with that, a lot of other listening. I mean, we've talked to the fire chief, we've talked to the schools. A concern that came up with where do they store their items, Christmas trees, bikes, extra toys, and that's when we added the mini storage facility to this, of which most are going to be earmarked for the tenants. We do have a demand study that shows the area does need those as well for the public. Then it came up with a clubhouse, amenities and a clubhouse for support for tenants. Someone has an emergency, where can they go? We're out of room on that property itself, so I purchased the office building that's right next door. We have some vacancies coming up there, so we will have a welcome center, a leasing office, if you will, support for the tenants that are going to be living there. Those are just some of the hurdles that we've gone over in the years, and that's through working with all the powers that be in whatever area of this project has come up. It's a long time coming. Also, some financing options we went through. There are some other state grant programs like the Mission to 4%. We applied for that and were denied. It's too far from walkable distance to some of the things downtown in the village that we're aware of. We tried the Missing Middle program that's also new, and the additional costs ads from the program made it, again, not pencil. So we had to scratch our heads for a while and try to come up with something, and then we had the blessing of this new program come through. Blessing. I mean, everybody in this room was so happy. People that you've heard before this said finally they're looking in an area that has been skipped over, been passed for too long. Something that is, Commissioner Smoker brought up, how do we regulate the incomes? The state regulates this for us all. It's something that needs to be a certified property manager who submits every year, verify the incomes. It is a household income, so if you do have a full-time and a part-time, maybe entry-level jobs combined, those still would qualify for the program. Schools were always an issue with this program. The counties reimbursed dollar for dollar for every single, the portion of this $4.5 million, a lot of it is the schools, over $2 million, and that all comes directly back to the county, so there is no loss. It is part of the state's fund to help, again, recognize the same problem that we're talking about, the same problem that we have studies on. So we finally had that vehicle to get us to where we are today. I'm sure I'm missing some of the details. I've gone to a lot of these presentations, but we're here to answer questions. I've got SME here that wrote the packet that goes to the state, that goes through all the technical stuff. Marcus is here. He's got experience with, as my consultant and consultant this project for well over a year now, researching, turning over rocks, talking to churches, talking to other communities. What can we do to help get to this point? There's a lot of thought that's gone into this. Again, it's a math problem. They spoke well about that. To be able to get rents, to be able to build at market right now without some sort of incentive, without some sort of help, we're in the $17, $18, $19, $2,000 range for a unit at Mid-Villa. I don't feel that that's the area. I had a lot of other people tell me the exact same thing, making this project not feasible, not bankable, wouldn't be a good fit. So the TIF program is a long-term reduction in additional tax to this property. It's an expense. I'm saving on an expense. In turn, I get to take that expense and reduce the rents to make a project that works. So without reduction in expense, the rents have to go up. There is a balance there to make it bankable, to make it feasible, to make a healthy investment, a healthy project. So there's my opening lines. I'm here to answer any questions. Marcus here too has some more things. Go ahead.
So I'll talk a little bit more about the composition of the project. I've spoken, in public comment at a couple of these meetings. So it's 144 apartments. 120 of them are 2-bed, 2-bath apartments. Just to speak, obviously we can't project what is our resident, what is our family inhabiting these units look like. It could be 2 interns at at Bradford White, working and still falling within those income bands, each with 1 bed, 1 bath, and paying, about $600 to $650 a month for that part of their, I guess it would be about $700 a month for that part of their rent. And then we've had a lot of talk about the outlots. Nate talked about self-storage. This housing TIF, of course, only applies to housing. The marketability, the demand for certainly a self-storage place and even some of those outlots out front is somewhat dependent on the housing project being there. So we've done just some conceptual models on what kind of construction on an outlot, what does that result in? A restaurant could be $100,000, $150,000 of taxes coming in every year. Coffee shop, maybe half that. Self-storage in itself could be up to $100,000 depending on the scale of it. So those are all ancillary, projects that follow the housing in a sense and do provide, are not requesting any sort of incentive. Yeah, the housing, this is a new program. Kent County, I think, has seen one of these, and their BRA has a little more authority by statute, by right, and but they'd love to see more of them. Some of the feedback we've had is justifying the nature of this request. $4.5 million paid out over 14 years. It is a lot of money. We understand that, to Nate's point, and the state of Michigan backing this. There is about $2 million of that when the county has the opportunity every year can request the reimbursement of the school taxes. So ultimately, Nate talked about some of the infrastructure. That's a problem. There's a certain scale and efficiency that I'm personally very impressed with about the actual cost of this project that very few people could match. For a living, the 12 company RFP that happened for the Commission on Aging, I do that sort of stuff for a living. I can tell you if I found 6 people to price this project, I think Nate and his team would be incredibly hard to match. The request comes down to, like you said, what it makes a financeable project. There's upwards of $20 million of debt that is going to support this, and that's $1.5 million-ish of debt service every year. And the rest, Nate has to come up with cash. He has a choice if he wants to come up with more cash to reduce the loan. But the benefit is really realized in the rents to these future residents. So we've talked about this 80 to 120% AMI band. Somewhat shocking, from 2023 to 2024, those AMI levels increased by like 20%. So what was considered affordable by this published data shifted significantly, where we had initially set these rents at $1,225 for a 1-bed and $1,475 for a 2-bed. Those align at the low end with actually more of a 70% AMI. And for these initial rents and our projections, we're not planning to change that. That will widen the band of affordability here for the project. We don't want to evict people, right? Our property manager doesn't want to, and 30% of families' overall income going to rent is what is considered affordable. So it's actually a wider band by about 10%, which I think is really impressive. Over the course of the TIF, our projections are to raise rents at cost of inflation, which projects it at $3 or 3% a year. That doesn't always happen, but we do have this long-term commitment to affordability for the duration of that TIF. So it's 14 years. We got to stay in that less than 100% of AMI rental rate. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Commissioner Tennyson.
Who determines the 14 years versus a 10-year or whatever?
So, and SME can tune in with this as well. It was basically what makes the deal pencil, and taking in all the input is like, we think a 30-year ask, which is what the state allows, is certainly too long. We certainly heard some pressure on, that's too long. But we kind of started with a gut feel, which is how can we make this project work with some pretty secure pricing, and what is right for Middleville. And that really was a comparison to Caledonia, and making sure that we're going to be $100 to $200 less on that of any newly built apartment to make it more marketable. So a lot of it is what is eligible to be reimbursed is there's guidelines by the state, but it is what the local community believes is affordable. So we've kind of continued with that initial gut feel. We're not bumping it by 20% like all those income bands. But this is, like Nate said, almost a year-long process. And there was nothing really to kick that back to say that's the wrong amount of money over the wrong number of years. So.
Okay, same with the 4.5 million?
Elizabeth, can you answer a little bit more about the limits of what the state does allow?
Okay.
Yep, so my name is Elizabeth Mastering. I'm with SME. We help prepare the Brownfield plan. So under statute, the Brownfield plan could theoretically run out to a maximum of 30 years. As this project is projected, that could be up to around $11 million in a total ask, and that would be allowable under statute if MSHDA recognized that that's what this local body wanted to see in the project. There was a lot of back and forth over landing on the 14 years, but really, like Marcus had said, it's you have a debt service to pay on the property, and at what point do you hit the balance that the project can sustain itself? And so that was determined. I know they've had lots of discussions with lenders, but a lot of thought went into limiting it to what the project needed to be sustainable and to sustain the risk.
Okay. Additional questions? Commissioner Smelker?
After being on fire and ambulance for 30 years, on the EMS, I heard you say that you had a talk with the fire chief. Could you elaborate on that?
The discussion here with the fire chief was not about the TIF portion, but about the actual units themselves as far as height and getting ladders there, having them sprinkled. He did, I don't want to speak for him, but he had issues when he moved here to take the position. He couldn't find housing either. So the volunteer firefighters were brought up earlier in this, so we're hoping there's some offset there. But again, the other outlots and the mini storage are all taxed at normal rates. There's no program, even that I'm aware of, where someone could ask for the same kind of money for a commercial application. So as far as the fire chief we discussed, yes, there are some things he'd love to have. There's $25,000 he'd love to have for new hoses. I know he's in the middle of getting a new certification. I don't want to speak out of school of what that is, but he did that in his old jurisdiction around Lansing. So yes, we talked about needs and what they are, and EMS, I didn't have anyone to really speak with directly, but they all kind of fall under that same police. There are some public areas that will not receive the increase of just this portion of the property for a number of years. That is correct. We're looking at the project as Mid-Villa as a whole. The apartment portion is flats at Mid-Villa. There are the commercial lots at Mid-Villa, the mini storage at Mid-Villa. When we look at the overall, the increase, right now I pay $30,000 flat for the entire property the way it is. So we're hoping that we can look at the different areas. The one that needs help is the flats at Mid-Villa to make it reality. That's where this program comes from. Does that help?
Yeah, but on EMS, I think Thornapple Township, which that's my district, has a tendency to lose $200,000 over this 14-year period. Is there any way that there's certain things, and another thing is the school tax. Is the state going to reimburse the school tax? Are they going to reimburse operating and debt millage?
I can answer the question as it relates to the schools. So the ISD and the school operating millages, so long as the county BRA, if it were to be approved, reports annually what is dispersed to a developer, the state will reimburse those. Under statute, you're not allowed to capture against debt millages, so that's not part of the proposed $4.48 million.
Okay.
And to speak to the EMS thing quick, I mean, the verb lose was used, and I mean, I think that's a misconception of the program. And, you know, again, that could be true if the outlots were ignored. right? It is that increase, $200,000 over 14 years. I mean, that is really the impact that the township had. We presented to 3 different meetings with them, one of which the fire chief was at, and understand that that's a lot of money. It's a real thing in the context of all of the things we've heard this morning from public comment, various officials countywide who we've spoken with. The need for affordable housing is very clear. It's in a lot of published documents. This site is in that affordable housing study with Brownfield as a tool. And to relate it to the Commission on Aging, we all know that there are needs for care for seniors, and a lot of times the question is where? A lot of times the opposition to it is this is not the right spot. And what I would say coming into this and investing time for a year is all signs are pointing to this spot for densely developed housing. And so yeah, we understand the delay and the increase to these services, but it's all about, to us, been about finding that balance and people recognizing some of those holes that affordable workforce housing provides to support a vibrant community. So.
Well, just a statement. I've been, seeing it's a re-election year, I've been talking to a lot of people, and I haven't talked to anyone in the rural area in Thornapple that was in favor of this. So, and on the deal with the school taxes, Michael, can you help me a little bit on what she said? Do we have to put in to get the money back?
That's my understanding. I mean, I don't, we haven't done it before, but it sounds like, yeah, you'd have to somehow apply to the state through the Brownfield redevelopment authority. But
It wouldn't be an application, it's just ensuring that it's reported accurately what you pay out. So it's not necessarily up for debate with them to approve or deny it. You just have to report that it was paid out and then they reimburse you.
And that is for debt and operating, or just operating?
Just operating and ISD debt isn't contemplated as part of the developer's capture because debt millages aren't capturable under statute to begin with for Brownfield TIF. So the school debt would see an immediate increase with the project as far as taxes generated.
But you're saying out of the 4.5 million ask for the TIF, approximately 2 million can be refunded from the state back.
Approximately 2.2.
2.2 million is coming back through state reimbursements.
Correct.
So you're literally cutting that in half.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Getty.
I want to follow up on Commissioner Smelker's question about the school debt, so I understand the spreadsheet correctly. The school debt of $887,170, that will not be reimbursed. So, the pages aren't numbered, but.
Correct.
So that just won't be captured, that school debt.
Correct. It will see an immediate increase assuming the project goes forward.
And then the county, because the DDA captures a significant portion of the project between the DDA and the village. What is the county sort of decision in terms of our general revenue? We have a dollar figure of what the impact is on the county's general revenue?
So there is a line, if you look at the table, broken out for what would be captured as county operating. It's grayed out because it is, if it were to be generated absent the Brownfield plan, the DDA would have first right to capture it. So it's part of the taxes that are generated, but it is, even if the project had gone forward without, would go to the Downtown Development Authority. Correct.
So to your question,
So zero.
Commissioner, there will be a layering. There will be effectively the pre-DDA, which the county and all the jurisdictions continue to capture. Then the DDA came along, and they capture incremental tax increases at that point. And now the DDA gets involved because of Getty's comment. They're capturing that. There will have to be an agreement that the DDA no longer captures the incremental increase associated with this project, but the Brownfield TIF will capture that so that it can go back to support. So there will be a layering, if you may, of TIF programs. Accurate?
Correct, and we've been in front of the DDA board several times and received an approval from them for that tax sharing agreement last month.
Okay. Commissioner Hatfield.
First of all, I want to apologize because I have a personal issue that I have to leave for. I have no choice. But, yeah, I want to remind everyone that the real question in front of us today is one of scheduling a public hearing. It's not one of approving the project. And I think we absolutely need to schedule the public hearing so that we can take that next step, gather public input, and then make a truly informed decision. I personally am in favor of scheduling the public hearing. I personally am in favor of seeing this project move forward. We absolutely need housing. If this project does not move forward, the likelihood of anything else being built on that property, particularly in the near term, is zero, which means, no taxes. So I think that it's regrettable that when the state puts a new program like this out there, it puts us in a competitive position with every other municipality in the state, most of which would welcome a project like this with open arms and would be more than happy to provide whatever incentives are available to make that happen. We do not want to lose this opportunity. So I'm in favor of it, but as far as the question today is, I think it's absolutely essential that we schedule the public hearing and move forward and take the next step. So I apologize, but I have to leave.
Okay. Thank you for those comments. Additional questions from commissioners? Commissioner Doster?
This project is going to be serviced by public water and public sewer. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm paying for the infrastructure and handing it over to the village.
Okay, and then they will be, you would pay a
pay water bill.
And they would be responsible for maintaining that system then?
Once I complete the construction and turn it over to the village, then it is the village water and sewer.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. And just, I think it's been noted, but the Village of Middleville voted unanimously in support of the project.
That is correct.
The Middleville DDA also voted in favor of the project.
That is correct.
I know we didn't get an opinion from Thornapple Township, and we were questioning why they did not weigh in, and I think Michael actually had some information, but based on the tax capture that they weren't receiving, I don't think they were required to weigh in on this project at all. So is there a more accurate description, Michael, or is that?
No, that's correct. The village is effectively the jurisdiction that has the, I'm going to say the authority over this. There's a jurisdiction where the zoning occurs, where the taxing occurs, where the services are provided. Thornapple Township does have a millage that's levied, but talking with our attorney, Thornapple Township, for lack of a better term, doesn't have, if you may, standing in deciding if this project goes forward or not, voting on it, if you may.
Okay.
The issue that they have is clearly, however, they have the millage, the emergency services millage that they have cost-sharing agreement with, or a capture agreement with the DDA, and I think they would like to continue that. But,
Okay. All right. I also echo Commissioner Hatfield's comments that with the local units of government approving this project, I think it's important that we follow suit and approve this to schedule for a public hearing. I know there's more public input coming, but I think it's our responsibility, since the local units have said yes to this project, that we honor what they've already established at the county. We have the smallest percentage of this. I think we're, out of that 4.5 million, I think we're around 14%. So our take over the 14 years is very small comparatively with some of the local units. So I'm going to support going ahead with scheduling the meeting for July 9th, 2024. Are there additional comments?
This is moving it forward from a cow to a BOC with the public comment.
This will go from the cow to the BOC next week, yes.
Did you want a motion to that effect, or?
Yeah, we'll make one when we, what's that?
July 9th?
July 9th is when the request is to
hearing?
schedule the public hearing. But am I correct, Michael, that'll also, is this a final action, or will this go through the BOC next week?
We would schedule the public hearing out of this meeting, because the public hearing is not an act of where you would take action. It's scheduled a public hearing, and so that we can meet the 10-day time frame.
That's correct.
That if you wanted it to go to the Board of Commissioners next week, before then we were to advertise, we would not be able to hold the public hearing on July 9th.
Okay.
I think let's just move it to the July 9th meeting and vote on it then.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to schedule the public hearing for July 9th.
Support.
All right, motion by Getty, was that Tunison? Support by Tunison to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to schedule a public hearing regarding the Mid-Villa TIF request at the regular Board of Commissioners meeting on July 9th, 2024. Following the public hearing, there'll be a vote for the Mid-Villa Project Housing TIF.
And I apologize, I need to interrupt that. As I consulted with our attorney, and I shared with Jennifer, and I don't mean to be the one that throws a wrench in this, but there are additional items that need to be, and we're kind of learning as we go. We're all admitting that with the state and the TIF. I don't know that you will be able to, or we will be in a position to approve it immediately following the public hearing on the 9th. So we're working through the details. There's a resolution that needs to be put together yet. So I'll work with Jennifer on that, but we have to make sure that there are the cadence of this, if you may, and we're working through right now to see if the township and the village have addressed their necessary resolutions, if you may. So we'll keep this moving along as quickly as we can, but there's no reason you can't hold the public hearing. That needs to occur regardless.
Okay, so just to reread the motion then, motion by Getty, support by Tunison to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to schedule a public hearing regarding the Mid-Villa TIF request at the regular board meeting of the Commissioners meeting on July 9th, 2024. So we will leave out the "and following the public hearing" to approve. So, additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in, for your time, for what has it been, 3.5 years of going through the process and buying oil lines and doing all kinds of fun stuff. So I appreciate the insight and the information. So,
Of course.
thank you. Next up, Michael Brown with the MERS HCSP participation agreement.
No, that's
That's the personnel.
I grabbed the wrong agenda. All right, let's go back to the right one. Additional public comment at this time. Any member of the board, any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Cheryl Lewis-Blake, Saw you guys last week. I'm here again, COA Board, and I'm the Vice Chair. I want to start by saying thank you for continuing to support the construction piece, and I'm looking forward to the construction manager. I was with Bob on the committee, and it was quite the process, but I'm proud of all the questions that were asked and the discernment that occurred in that decision-making. That's number one. Number two, a very different issue, but an important issue, of course, is the millage. And so I'd like to go on record this morning, sharing with those who are listening as well, that we had a large contingent of people here. You saw a half a dozen persons who believe in the COA and believe in the services for our seniors. That included Woodland Meadows, as well as the Carveth Village, and you heard that from their administrator. And so thank you for the work that you do, and please encourage everyone to get out and vote in August. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Additional public comment?
Hey, back again, Gary White. I was watching your interaction with about the public comment and how you kept on questioning things. It was really, should you have a public comment or not, but then we wanted to know about different things. Well, when you look at the COA building, did you put yourselves through the same questioning that you just put that development group through? When I look at the 53,000 meals delivered to homebound seniors, you divide that by 300 days, 176 seniors, right? So it's about 176 seniors. If you do it by 325, it's 163 seniors. What is the number? I'm not quite sure. 16,000 meals served in a congregate setting. If you go 4 days, 50 weeks, then it's about 200 days, about 80 people served. So the thing is that there are seniors out there with needs. A lot of those needs, once again, I will say, are being taken care of by seniors, they're being taken care of by family, they're being taken care of by other agencies. Have you folks put your business plan together the same way you've been asking other people to have a business plan? Can you show me the numbers that really, or are you just emotionally attached, which is not a good thing for elected officials to be doing, is to get emotional over something and say, well, we're going to take care of our seniors. If you're taking care of your seniors, or the seniors, have you got your personal check out? We're at the $1.5 million, $1.52 million check, or are you writing the checks that some people can't afford with other people? What I'm really asking, if I ask for the business case to validate this size of facility that the voters turned down earlier in a millage, and moving this location, can you present a business case the same way you just asked that developer to present? If you can't present the business case, should you be doing it? This is my whole problem with this thing. I actually went through the chamber with my driving school, and they told me about the score. Put a business case together. They were evaluated with retired businessmen. I appreciated that, because at that point in time, I realized that 30% of the people, the teens coming, they're in school, they do not want driver's ed for one reason or another. It might be affordability. It might be they were just too busy on their phones. Have you done the same thing with the COA? Do you know the numbers? Is this facility to be supersized for not the number of people? Moving it out of the city of Hastings? How is it going to impact the city of Hastings or businesses? Once again, we come back down to businesses, right? And we only come back down to the seniors you're saying you're going to take care of. Are you taking care of seniors, or are you just growing government? That's the question for the business. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Hearing none. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Doster.
I've been receiving, and I think Catherine has as well, a number of inquiries regarding Hall Lake. Hall Lake is a kind of a picture-perfect postcard spot in Berry County, one of the most beautiful areas that we have. It's located kind of between McKibben's Corners, the car lot, along Gun Lake, on the way to Gun Lake. It's on the right-hand side, has two small islands, and it's very picturesque from the road. There's a structure under the road there that currently maintains the water level, and there have been problems with it over like a 6-year period. The DNR's tried to come up with ways to fund doing something there. And it appears that they've recently received a grant for like $1.4 million to do something with that, the water level there, but it would lower the water level from 5 to 7 feet, that's my understanding. The grant somehow is tied to reclamation or creating additional habitat for rattlesnakes is how it's funded. And there are people on Gun Lake that are putting a petition around wishing that the lake would remain at its same level. I don't know what the cost would be in order to effectuate that, but there's a lot of trying to search out information and track people down and see if something can be done here. But,
You have a question, Commissioner Sullivan?
Yeah, who received the grant, or who put in for the 1.4?
I believe the DNR received it from the federal government.
This for the protection of our northern Mississauga rattlesnakes or whatever
Eastern.
the case? Eastern?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they moved to the
Oh,
east
they
after
moved
the
to the
north,
east,
so.
yeah. That's
Okay.
my understanding, at least.
Thank you. Commissioner Getty?
Yes, I've heard from a number of people as well. I did reach out to the district supervisor for the DNR Parks and Recreation Division, and they are still compiling the information. I did hear that they are still considering all options for that dam, and I hope it's in response to the concern that residents have brought forth, because it really is, like Commissioner Doster stated, it's really one of the most beautiful places we have, and it's very accessible from Gun Lake Road. There's a trail that circumnavigates the lake, and it's also part of the Hall Lake trail loop there. And 5 to 7 feet difference in lake level would be a considerable change to what they have there.
Yeah.
So they are going to be holding a public hearing. They are still looking at options. He stated that the press release that was cited from Eagle was maybe a little premature for their to what their final project might look like. So as soon as I hear about any updates, Commissioner Doster is also in the loop, but as soon as we hear any updates or when that public hearing is, we'll be sure to share it out.
So this is on state land? It's not going through the Drain Commissioner office?
No.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, please keep us updated.
The road commission has some play in it, since the road itself is basically the dam.
Okay. Interesting. Is that by Deep Lake? Same area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Long Lake, Deep Lake.
South side.
That is a beautiful
Near
area.
the Devil's Soup Bowl.
Beautiful area, so. Commissioner Smelker?
Just a personal comment on that. I think they will have a public hearing, but the DNR and Ingle will do exactly what they want to do.
Commissioner Campbell?
Good morning. As most of you know, the Personnel and Human Services Committee is not one of my favorite adventures that we have done up here as commissioners. And I do see we have another meeting coming up on June 20th for the Personnel and Human Services. As I understand it, this may be a possible template for the future of doing more things as committees and less things as a Board of Commissioners as a whole. I'm definitely against this. I feel that my 4 townships elected Bruce Campbell to represent them in all businesses of the county. And when we split and choose who's going to take what, I just don't feel like I'm being fair to my constituents. It might make an easier course for the commissioners to go this direction, but I don't believe it does benefit to my constituents. Therefore, I'm very much in debate of should I vote in favor of things that come out of the Personnel Committee that I've had no input in and that I've had no voice in? Have I really represented my 4 townships? To me, I have not. So that's where I stand.
Appreciate your thoughts. Thank you, Bruce. Commissioner Tennyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to commend anyone who has a assisted living business serving the seniors of this county. They do a great job. But when it comes down to, I think about my own parents, it comes down to law of economics, right? I mean, if Harvest Point's $3,800 a month and the one across the road's $25,000, and my mom and dad only have $3,000 a month coming in, chances are, if there's available, I'm going to go to the because I'm sure it's a great facility. A lot of it comes down to is money, and a lot of it comes down to location. A lot of people aren't going to take their parent from Hastings all the way to Middleville, vice versa, Middleville to Hastings, unless they can't find another place to go. So, but I do want to know all the businesses out there. It has nothing to do with Harvest Point, where the COA is, versus picking one over another. I mean, I've been to Harvest Point. I've been to numerous other assisted living places, and they all do a great job. When my grandmother was there, she was at down at one that they were doing on McGlynn Road, and they did a great job for the seniors. And I know they all do. When it comes down to the COA new building, when I was running for commissioner, sitting out in that audience, every week I would hear somebody say, "What are you guys going to do about the new a building for the COA?" And as I was running, I kept thinking every week, there's got to be something we can come up with, a plan we can come up with. When we got our new board here, we all started talking about it. We came up with a plan, not to put it on the taxpayers, not to put it on the back of the taxpayers by the county coming up with $3 million and self-funding raising that the COA has done a great job of out in the community selling this new project, and a lot of people feel very passionately about it. I am too. I think it'd be great for the county. I think it's a stepping stone to have a new facility that people can be proud of. And yes, it's being moved to a location that some people might not want it to be. But we're looking at cost savings too. If you think about the water suppression that's already there, if you think about the power source, the Thornapple Manor can put their portion into a rehab facility and a dialysis area that would benefit the whole county, not just Hastings, because there's not enough dialysis machines around. There's not enough rehab facilities around. It'll do nothing but help the residents out there at Thornapple Manor to have a lot more interaction with a lot more people that come out there daily. So I feel strongly about that. So.
I appreciate that. I share those sentiments as well. I think when this gets established and set up, this is going to be a gem for Berry County, and it's going to be a model for other counties how to put senior-centric facilities together that utilize multiple levels, whether it's assisted living, whether it's seniors living on their own, whether it's recreation facilities. I think the model is going to be phenomenal going forward. So I'm super excited about it. I'm excited that it's not on the taxpayers to fund this, that it's being privately funded through the county and through philanthropy, The board is doing a fantastic job with it. There will always be voices of concern, and that's okay. It's good to have those voices of concern. It's good to look at things, rethink things. But I think that this has been discussed for many years before this board started, that this has been talked about and it's been pursued before. There just wasn't the creative board and the creative minds to put it together with the help of Michael. So, like I said, this is going to be a gem going forward. The thing we need to continue to work on is be very cognizant of other care facilities in the county. We need to be able to reach out to them and be sure that they are plugged in, that there's collaboration between organizations. But I agree, location has been a big decision in a lot of those as far as where your parents are going to go in those, and that'll always be, cost and location. But I think this is something that if we continue to do what we do as Berry County, collaborate, work together with all care facilities so everyone has equal access, and we're cross-promoting opportunities and open facilities. Baby boomers are getting older, and there's not enough facilities to take care of what's coming, so we need all hands. We need all people. So, and we've got a great group in the county. I appreciate Mackenzie's comments and concerns, and we'd be certainly willing to continue those conversations. So that's all I have. We appreciate you coming. It's going to be warm. Stay in the AC or enjoy the lake or something. So have a great day.